Welcome to the Practical Consciousness Podcast with James and Lisa, where we help you tap into your highest selves in everyday life. Hi, welcome to Practical Consciousness, the podcast with James and Lisa. I'm James.
And I'm Lisa.
The always lovely Lisa. Today, we're going to kind of go back to some basics of practical consciousness. We're going to go back to awareness, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper and I think spend a little bit of time of talking about the different kind of forms of awareness. Our hope here is that whether you're a new listener or you've been listening to us for a while, it's such a foundational and core aspect to raising our consciousness and being a more conscious being. Self-awareness, awareness is really one of the pillars, right? I mean, we can't.
I would say the pillar, right? If you don't have awareness, you're not going to be awake. I mean,
yeah,
right?
Well, you're certainly not going to be conscious.
Sure, yes.
Yeah, you're
exactly.
going to be, totally unconscious in the sense that you're making unconscious decisions.
Yeah.
So when I say there's factors, there's really only one awareness, and we both agreed to that. But that awareness, and Lisa said it before we came on, she said it really great, is that because we are physical beings, there's sort of three domains of our awareness. Yeah. There's physical awareness, right? What's going on in our body.
Yep.
There's mental awareness, which is, what our brain is ultimately figuring everything out. And then there's emotional awareness.
How we feel.
And it's interesting too. This just kind of came to me as we were talking about this, is that this idea that, emotional intelligence it's obviously a thing, right? And we're finding that, people's level of achievement and success in the physical world is really more a product of their emotional intelligence than there is of their mental intelligence.
Yeah.
So we could also, I guess, go so far as to say it's not only emotional, physical, and mental awareness, it's emotional, physical, and mental intelligence.
Yeah.
Because when our vibration comes up, when our energy is, if any of you are interested, we're energetic coaches. We believe there's basically 7 unique levels of energy, and we coach that. We talk about that. It's in many of these episodes. But those lower catabolic frequencies, you're probably spending a little bit more time in the awareness. And then probably when we go up into the anabolic energy, we are actually probably more intelligence.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, that just actually came to me just now.
Yeah, very good. Yay!
It probably came.
You're becoming more intelligent.
Yes, it came from universal intelligence.
Yeah, but that idea of because we're human, I like to just think of it as like when you're in spirit, you don't have the body, so you're not experiencing through your body, and you don't have the emotions, so it's because we're in these bodies that we're having these different types of awareness, because we're in a physical body, so we're having these physical, and we have the emotions. And
well, that's exactly right. And I'm a big believer that we've got one foot in our physical existence and one foot in a higher intelligence, a higher divine realm, whatever you want to call that.
Right. And we talk about that a lot with like meditation and getting in touch with our higher self. There's your foot in the other, on the other side.
And that's why it's so, such a key pillar is that aspect of us can't experience anything physically without the awareness of the mental, physical, and emotional, and vice versa.
And that's why we're here. So there are some people who come to this lifetime and they're just like, I just want to be floating. Like they have a hard time dealing with the physical world. and they just want to kind of zen out.
Right.
But really, that's not what their spirit wanted.
Right.
We come here to have the human experience
Yep.
so that we can grow.
Yeah. I remember the episode number, I think it's like 24 or 25, where we talk about 100% spiritual, 100% human.
Right.
And then that's essentially what you're talking about, is
Yeah.
that, we live with both feet, and experience life in that aspect.
At all times.
So let's start with physical awareness.
Okay.
What do you know? What are your thoughts about physical awareness? What is it? How do we use it? Blah, blah, blah.
Well, I've talked in previous episodes about how our physical bodies are our receiver of our intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So our bodies communicate with us.
Yeah.
You might get like a tightening in your gut telling you something, or you might have pain somewhere. A lot of times when we have issues, emotional issues actually, that we stuff, it can express itself, manifest itself through our body with illnesses.
Right. Yeah, we had Dr. Angela Smith as a guest, and she talked about our bodies kind of like an antenna.
Right.
In that there's the inner physical awareness, and then there's the outer physical awareness, which is, it can see elements that we maybe are less aware of.
It can be our antenna if we allow it, if we connect to it, we can, and we're aware of it.
Right. Yes. And then how does that transition into intelligence, physical intelligence?
Yeah, that would just be like what I was talking about, the gut feelings, or, the intuitive kind of hits that you have that come through your body.
Yeah. It's almost like, you start becoming aware, like you say, of these things you see, the smells you smell, the taste you taste, the aches and pains and all those things, you talk about. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, as you become aware of it transitions to guidance.
Yeah. It's so interesting the way you just said that. We have 5 senses, right?
6.
5 physical senses. And the 6th one is what you're talking about now, the intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our intuitions can speak to us and guide us in a physical way, right? It does for me. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can tell you it. And those of you that have followed this podcast, you'll know that when we started this podcast, I had no real awareness, physical awareness, not really, outside of the senses, but my physical body, I definitely didn't connect with in a way I do now, because partially I didn't believe I could back then, and thanks to
you've meditated a lot.
Yeah, and several of you, I've discovered I've shifted from the awareness to the intelligence.
Yeah, there you go. I love that concept.
I know, me too. I was like,
so that's physical.
Yeah. So let's talk about mental.
Well, wait, first with physical, you said something earlier. You were saying that it's rooted in survival.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So we were going to talk about the lower vibration versus the higher, and we kind of just jumped right into the higher.
Yeah.
So there is a lower vibration to the physical part, which is based in fear.
Fear and survival. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's rooted. It's a good point. It's rooted in survival.
Right.
And then in the higher vibration, it transitions.
Right.
To be more of almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like it radiates. Your body starts to radiate.
Yeah.
Especially when it's healthy.
Yeah.
Our physical, we keep physical awareness being the body, but it's all of it, right? It's the 5 senses. So.
And our bodies are energetic. So what you were just describing is the vibration. Yeah. That's the energetic body.
Yeah. Well, our physical world starts to radiate, right?
Yeah.
We start
Yeah.
our not only ironically on a cellular level our energy shifts, but also our world changes.
The way we see it, or the way we
Yeah,
sense it,
our way
the
we
way we
sense it.
perceive it.
Perfect. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
our world, our senses radiate differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I think that would be a good podcast sometime just to focus on that. That would be a really good topic.
okay,
And how
there we
you
go.
can start to sense the vibration of everything.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about
Emotional.
emotional. Yeah, let's talk about emotional. So what is your let's talk about the lower vibrating of emotional awareness.
So lower vibration meaning like anger or frustration,
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, I think that's yeah. We're starting to talk about what we experience, and honestly, I guess in a weird sort of way, this is just kind of coming to me right now too, as we're talking about this, is that I can speak only for my journey, but as I started to become more self-aware, the emotions were the first thing I started becoming aware of.
Yeah.
The
Well,
emotional
because your
awareness.
emotions are actually the vehicle that your higher self uses to help you
Yeah.
recognize things. Like you'll start to feel an emotion because your higher self is like, hello, this is something you need to pay attention to.
Yeah. And I think for me, certainly the trigger emotions, the lower vibrational emotions, anger, frustration,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to practice awareness to become aware of them.
They're
Right?
pretty strong, huh?
Yeah, most of us sense those ones pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well,
What, and we're going to talk about this in a minute about how we tie all these together. But it's when I started to become aware of my emotions and tie them to the other awarenesses
yeah.
that I started to really see the fractal aspect of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the emotions are like kind of like the gateway awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And then the physical awareness becomes, how you start tying the two together, and then ultimately
Yeah.
you tie them to the mental awareness.
Right.
And we
Well,
kind
the
of all,
mental awareness.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say the mental awareness and the emotional awareness are really tied tightly together, right? Because your thoughts are what cause the emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. They become awareness when they're all tied together.
Yes.
And so when we have emotional intelligence, how would the emotions shift in that circumstance?
Well, I mean, for one, you're going to have more compassion because you're going to be aware of other people's emotions too. You're going to be aware of yours and others and how you're affecting people with
Yeah.
the way that you're acting. So there's a lot more joy and love. Love's the highest one, right? That's kind of like center of the universe.
Yeah. And I was as you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, it's like, I also think when you become emotionally intelligent, or you vibrate at a higher level, emotions become, and I don't know how to say what I say. All emotions become important.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Yes.
I said kind of the
Yes.
gateway on the lower level, and was very aware of lower emotions, anger, frustration, whatever, the lower vibrating emotions.
Right.
But as I become, I guess, more emotionally aware at a higher level, or at least a more conscious level, then I also become more accepting of all emotion.
Yeah.
That all emotion has value, and all emotion tells me all emotion is awareness.
Right. Well, there's a whole nother topic we could do on this one, because with emotions, we tend to put energy behind them and keep them going with our thoughts.
Yeah.
So there are ways of actually dissolving these uncomfortable emotions. You can sit with them and help prevent them from, you like, don't add any thoughts behind it, because that just gives it energy, or
Yeah,
try to stuff it, right? Because
right.
and if you
Don't keep
stuff
charging it.
yeah, you're just charging it up. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic, but yeah,
That is another whole
it
topic.
is. It could be a whole
Okay, so let's go to
nother
mental awareness.
topic. Okay. Now, you said earlier, rooted in drama. That's pretty much your ego, right? Your ego. I mean, the drama part of it is your ego, the
Yeah.
lower vibration.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely rooted in drama, and rooted in, I would say, comparison.
Yeah.
And
And just judging ourselves, and I guess that could be connected to comparison.
yeah, also attachment as well, right?
Sure.
Rooted in
absolutely.
judgment, rooted in attachment.
And control,
Yeah.
control, like trying to control your life, everything.
Or my internet is really bad right now.
That's all right. These are tough times. You're not choppy for me, so we're good. I'm hoping we can post the video and not just the sound, but we'll see.
Well, if you're watching this, and this is the times we live in. So
yeah.
And I'm, as Lisa and I were saying, I'm, in the middle of Arizona, near Sedona, in a fifth wheel. So it's a miracle we're getting what we're getting now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about, what does it look like? What's our mental awareness? It really just boils down to our thoughts, right? But it's more than just our thoughts. It's the resonance and the quality of our thoughts.
Right. Because there's good thoughts, right? You can use your mental awareness to channel creativity, right? To create things, to kind of like, Einstein.
Just like anything, and there's just no bad thoughts or good thoughts.
Right.
There's just thoughts.
Yeah, and they're all energy.
Yeah, they're all energy. But I guess when I talk about resonance, or I talk about quality, it's are the thoughts. When we start becoming aware of our thoughts, it's a question of whether they're serving us in our higher purpose, or whether they're working against us.
Yeah.
Because our mind's going to think like incessantly, never stop.
Yep.
It can't.
That's true.
So it really comes down to, I mean, in an awareness aspect, it's what's the quality of those thoughts?
Yeah. What's the quality of the thoughts? And also, are you aware of your thoughts? Are you aware of what you're thinking?
Right. That's the consciousness piece.
That observer, like looking in on it and seeing what you're thinking, as opposed to just letting yourself get lost in, like, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? Or
that's a good way to
said this, or
that's a good way to think about it as that observer. That's an important aspect of meditation for sure, is becoming the observer. But it doesn't have to be on the pillow, right? It can be all aspects of our lives. Oh man,
sure,
you're frozen like in that precarious, space.
Yay, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, we never freeze in like a smile. It's always like our eyes are closed.
Like,
yeah. Okay,
well,
so as we always do in the Practical Consciousness podcast, we like to bring it into practicality.
Okay.
So what's one of the best ways you, in your practice, enhance your physical awareness?
By tuning into my body, by exercising, by eating healthy, by drinking plenty of water, by sleeping plenty of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to contemplate. It's become my new favorite thing, and we're going to do a podcast episode on it, but I like to just sit and contemplate, what am I feeling? What's coming up for me? And I think I prefer to tap into the guidance of my physical awareness. What is it? What is it sharing?
Yeah.
But I think your point is a really good one. Movement is definitely a good way.
Yeah.
And also just sitting still and allowing our body to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
And that
Yes.
that doesn't have to be a meditation or anything, right? It can be just sitting even watching
quietly.
TV or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shared with me something a couple years ago that you do that I have made a pretty regular practice on my part, is just pausing, setting a timer a few times a day and just pausing and put my hand on my heart, put my hand on my solar plexus and just check in.
Yeah. How am I feeling?
How am I going? How am I feeling right now?
Yep. That's a really good thing to do. I'm glad you still do that, because I forget sometimes. Thank you for the reminder.
I actually have I have an actual timer at 3 o'clock, noon, 9 o'clock. So every 3 hours basically throughout the day.
Yeah.
I give myself 3 minutes. The Trinity's like a big deal with me. The thirds are, yeah.
Me too. That's my favorite number, because I was born on April 3rd.
Okay. What's a practical way to tune into our emotional awareness?
Oh, well, that one for sure would be to put your hands on your second chakra, which is just below your belly button, and check in and say, how am I feeling right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a time when I was seeing a therapist that was asking me to do that. And I would put my hands there and I would ask myself that several times a day. And I would be like, I feel whatever, normal. I didn't even know. I didn't know how I felt. It took a while of doing that a lot, and journaling helped a lot. That's probably when I told you about that, putting your hand on your heart and your hand. It was when I started doing that, and it really finally created a shift of me recognizing, oh, this is how I'm feeling. Like right now I'm feeling sad, or right now I'm feeling happy, or whatever. Yeah,
for me, it's journaling for sure. That's kind of after the fact a little bit, but it definitely, before I go to bed at night, I reflect. I don't set a timer. It fizzles out when it fizzles out.
Yeah.
But I find that in the reflection of the day, that's when I notice the emotion.
Yeah. I have a friend who said she just told me this today, that her son, when he gets upset, he journals. So he's doing it in the moment.
Oh, wow.
And he gets like, little ahas out of it. Like, this is why I'm so upset about this.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the actually, in a little plug for what we do, that's a way coaching really helps too, because as you're sharing with your coach something that's happening, coaches often see the emotion that you're attaching and feel it often, and can help you become aware. And that's another one too. Someone you trust, someone you know has your interests in heart and is willing to be open, can also share the emotions.
Yes.
Particularly ones we don't see.
Yeah.
Okay. Running out of time. So let's talk about real quickly, the mental one. Yeah. Which is not a real quick one, but
Yeah, that's paying attention to your thoughts. Like we kind of already talked about it. Be aware, be the observer. Start recognizing your thoughts. So if you notice yourself going into a tailspin of worry about something in particular, let's say you're worried about, when my daughter was a teenager, I used to worry about when she would go out with friends. Oh, they're going to be in a car and this could happen and that, and it just spirals. And then I started awareness, just recognizing that I was doing it. That's just the first step. Just noticing it. I'm doing it again. I'm stuck in there.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
One of my big ways, it's a form of journaling as well, shocker, is in the morning in particular, I like to just express whatever's coming through. And so it's a bleh of thought, basically. You just puke on the paper and words. Just let thoughts come until they fizzle out.
Yeah.
And for me, that's one of the greatest ways that I become aware of certainly my more toxic thoughts, or the thoughts that are in that lower vibrational awareness, right?
Yeah.
The other thing for me is nature. I don't know what it is about. And again, it's the pondering and it's the contemplation. But nature, if I go for a walk in nature or just walk, thoughts, I've become very, very aware of my thinking.
Yeah, love that.
So those are a couple there. And then bringing it all together into total awareness. Any practical approaches, mechanisms, tools, ideas?
Meditation and mindfulness.
Yeah.
You got to get yourself into the present moment. That's that's where it's going to happen, is in the present moment.
Yeah. I was just going to say same thing, is root at ground and become as present as possible.
Yeah. All the things that we talk about.
Our mind is incapable of being in the present moment. It's literally impossible.
Well, our ego for sure. That's why our ego is so afraid of the present moment, because it can't exist there.
Well, our mind's built to think ahead and look backwards. Mm-hmm. It's a way it was sort of like designed. So this is kind of the tricky part of bringing it all together, is you literally have to, if you think about it, you literally have to step out of your mind as much as possible. And get present in some other anchoring mechanism, whether it's breathing and meditation, visualization of something, going for a walk in nature, running, exercising, whatever it is, ground yourself in, anchor yourself in the present, however you now that could be a podcast actually on its own, is all the various forms of anchoring. And we could also probably do some practice of anchoring, different ways of anchoring. That might be kind of fun.
Well, we come up with all kinds of ideas, don't we?
We do.
It's those brains.
And I've decided that I'm going to start throwing in we did this in our Practical Consciousness podcast experience, where we ended our sessions with coaching questions. So I want to throw out a coaching question today. The coaching question is, where are you least aware, and what opportunity would come by becoming more aware in that area?
I love that. That's a great question.
That's a good one.
Good.
All right, you guys.
Everybody ponder that.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. We went a little long today. Thank you for your patience if you're watching the YouTube channel with our freezing up
faces.
Yeah. It is what it is. We adapt and move on.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.